Welcome to the Deep Dive. We gather up sources, articles, research notes, and boil them down to what really matters. Today we're tackling, well, a giant. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, it's absolutely huge. A real cultural touchstone,
Hmm.
published way back in 1936, right? And it's more than just a book.
Definitely more.
It's become this global thing, sold, what, over 30 million copies? And that title phrase, winning friends and influencing people, I mean, everyone knows it. It's just part of how we talk now. Its staying power is pretty amazing.
It really is staggering,
Yeah.
especially because it seems to walk this incredibly fine line. On one hand, people hail it as this brilliant guide to making genuine connections.
The positive side.
But then just as often you hear it slammed as, a kind of cynical handbook for manipulating people.
And that tension, that paradox, that's really the heart of why it's still so fascinating. And that's what we want to unpack today. Thinking back to when it first came out, the core idea was actually pretty revolutionary for its time.
Which was,
Well, the idea that success isn't just about, say, luck or how good you are at your specific job, your technical skills. Carnegie argued it could be engineered, systematically built by mastering how you deal with other people.
that reframing that success is a skill you can actually learn. Wow, that must have hit hard. Really empowering.
It absolutely was. It basically shifted the focus. Suddenly, control wasn't just about the economy or external stuff. It was about your own behavior. And people really needed that message then.
So let's rewind a bit, talk about the man himself. Before Dale Carnegie was, Dale Carnegie, he was Dale Harbison Carnegie.
Right, with all.
From a poor background in Missouri, grew up on a farm. He ended up selling things like bacon and soap for Armour and Company.
A classic salesman start.
Yeah, and then he tried acting in New York. Apparently that didn't quite pan out.
No, by his own admission, not a roaring success. But those experiences, the sales grind, trying to perform, they clearly shaped him. The big turning point seems to be 1912. He started teaching public speaking classes at the YMCA.
And what happened?
Well, he realized pretty quickly that the adults in his classes, they needed more than just help with giving speeches. They needed something more fundamental. Skills for, as he put it, the fine art of getting along with people in their everyday lives. Business, social stuff.
So his classroom kind of accidentally became this testing ground, a laboratory of human relationships, as he called it.
Exactly. He was constantly trying out principles, seeing what worked, what didn't, real-world feedback.
Before we move off his origin, we have to mention the name change. That was quite deliberate, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. A smart move. Around 1922, he changed Carnegie to Carnegie.
Linking himself, obviously, to Andrew Carnegie, the steel tycoon.
Precisely. A very shrewd bit of personal branding. You could say he was influencing people about influence even then.
Okay, so the book comes out in 1936. Why was that timing so crucial?
The Great Depression. That's the backdrop. The economic system had just collapsed for millions of people. There was this pervasive feeling of helplessness, anxiety everywhere.
And Carnegie steps into that void.
Right. And he offers this powerful counter-narrative. He proposed this idea, backed by some analysis he'd done, that something like 85% of your financial success wasn't about your technical knowledge.
85%. Wow. So what was it then?
It was about skill in human engineering, as he called it. Personality, the ability to lead people.
So it puts the power right back in your hands. Even if the economy's a mess, you can still work on this. It offered a sort of psychological toolkit when everything else felt out of control.
That's it, exactly. And all his techniques, really everything in the book, they all spring from one core observation he made about human nature.
The foundational axiom.
The foundation. It's this. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity.
If you buy that premise.
Then everything else follows. Exactly. The rest of the book is basically the how-to based on that core idea.
Okay, so if we're dealing with emotional creatures driven by pride, then his very first principle makes perfect sense. It's like the entry ticket to any interaction.
The non-negotiable rule. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Simple, but profound.
Why was that so fundamental for him?
It's all about ego management. Carnegie believed criticism is basically useless. Worse, it's dangerous. It wounds that precious pride, hurts their sense of self-importance, and boom, they're immediately defensive.
And once someone's defensive, you can forget about influencing them.
Game over before it starts, which leads right into his main strategy, the core of the whole thing. Get the focus off yourself. radically shift it to the other person.
Strategic selflessness, maybe?
That's a good way to put it. It's this idea of other orientation. He had that famous quote, something like, "You can make more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people."
Than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you.
That's the one. It completely flips the script on how most of us naturally operate in social situations.
And some of his practical tips seem almost too simple, but they work. Like remembering someone's name.
He called a person's name the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Think about it. It's instant recognition. It says, "I see you as an individual." It validates them. It's not just about the transaction.
Okay, so we've got the de-escalation part, don't criticize, and the attraction part, be genuinely interested. But how does he suggest moving from just being friendly to actually, influencing someone to take action? What's the engine there?
Ah, the engine. That's about triggering what he called an eager want. You have to figure out what the other person already wants, what motivates them, what serves their ego or needs, and then connect what you want them to do to that.
So it's aligning your goal with their existing desires.
Precisely. The later parts of the book are really just a collection of tactics for creating that eager want while minimizing any pushback or resistance.
Like avoiding arguments altogether.
Yes, absolutely. He says avoid them, and crucially, never say you're wrong. That's just guaranteed to make someone dig their heels in.
Instead, use techniques that give them a sense of control.
Exactly. Transfer the agency. Things like, let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers, or asking questions instead of barking orders. When they feel ownership, their enthusiasm goes way up.
The book is packed with stories illustrating this. The John D. Rockefeller example about his partner, Edward Bedford, really stands out for ego protection.
Yeah, that's a classic. Bedford messes up, cost the company $1 million, which was an insane amount of money back then.
And Rockefeller's reaction.
Instead of tearing into him, Carnegie says Rockefeller found something to praise. He focused on the fact that Bedford had managed to salvage 60% of the money involved in the bad deal.
Praise the partial success, not the overall failure.
He said something like, "That's splendid. We don't always do as well upstairs. So praise first. Let Bedford save face." What does that do? It maintains loyalty, keeps the focus on fixing things, and avoids that bitterness that criticism creates.
And we see a similar dynamic in the sales story, the X-ray machine salesman. That's all about making the idea feel like it came from the other person.
Right. The salesman doesn't just barge in with a pitch. He writes to the head doctor, basically saying, "You're an expert. Could you give me some advice on how to make my machine better for doctors like you?"
So he flatters the doctor by asking for his expertise.
Exactly. The doctor, feeling valued and consulted, starts looking at the machine, pointing things out, and in the process convinces himself it's actually pretty good. He ends up buying it.
Because it felt like his discovery, his conclusion.
That's that eager want and let them feel the idea is theirs. Principle in action. Powerful stuff.
Okay, but we have to tackle the big elephant in the room. The criticism that just won't go away. Is this all just manipulation? A bag of tricks, as some called it, to fake interest and get what you want.
Yeah, that charge has followed the book from day one. Even prominent writers back then, like Sinclair Lewis, they argued it was inherently cynical, just teaching people how to be phony.
But Carnegie himself pushed back hard on that, didn't he? This is that sincerity paradox we talked about. Can you explain that?
The paradox is using calculated methods to achieve supposedly genuine connection. Carnegie was adamant. These principles only truly work if they come from honest and sincere appreciation. He explicitly called flattery counterfeit, shallow, selfish. He said it wouldn't work long-term because smart people see through it. For the magic to happen, he insisted, it had to be real. It had to come from the heart.
But the techniques themselves, they're tools. They don't have inherent morality. It's all about who's using them and why.
And there's a really chilling example of that, unfortunately. Our sources mention that Charles Manson, well, he apparently read and used Carnegie's principles he learned in prison.
Used them to manipulate his followers into committing murder.
Yeah. It's a deeply disturbing illustration of that moral neutrality. These techniques are powerful tools for understanding and influencing human psychology. They can be used for good or not.
That really underscores the responsibility that comes with learning these methods. It's not just about effectiveness, it's about ethics.
Absolutely. Mastery of influence isn't inherently good or bad, it just is.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to a more modern critique. The idea that the book has a privileged blind spot. It was written, let's face it, for white men in the business world of the 1930s. How does that context limit its application today?
That's a really important conversation, especially now. The problem isn't necessarily the principles themselves, but how they land depending on who's using them. The context of social power dynamics matters hugely.
So the same action can be interpreted totally differently.
Exactly. Take the idea of asking questions instead of giving direct orders. If a senior executive, a powerful man, does that, he probably looks humble, maybe empowering, strategic.
Okay.
But if a woman or someone from an underrepresented group or even just a junior employee uses the exact same technique, asking lots of questions, avoiding direct commands, letting others take credit, how might that be seen?
They might be perceived as weak, lacking confidence, not assertive enough.
Precisely. Meek, unassertive. So, applying Carnegie's advice without being aware of these modern power structures and biases could actually backfire. It might inadvertently reinforce the very stereotypes those individuals are trying to overcome.
That's a crucial layer of complexity for anyone reading it today. So considering all this, the power, the potential pitfalls, the historical context, what's the book's lasting value? You mentioned framing it as sort of a precursor to emotional intelligence, EQ.
Yeah, I think that's a really useful lens. EQ as a concept wasn't really formalized until the 90s, but Carnegie was intuitively teaching its core components decades earlier.
How so?
Well, think about it. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That's basically a practical guide to self-regulation, managing your own emotional reactions. And his constant emphasis on try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view, that's the absolute definition of empathy.
And what does modern psychology say? Does it back up Carnegie? We know the name thing holds up neuroscience, shows hearing our name lights up specific brain areas, builds trust.
Yeah, there's strong validation for some parts, but there's also refinement. Like that 2018 study you mentioned, the one looking at perspective taking, putting yourself in their shoes.
Right, what did that find?
It found that while trying to imagine someone else's perspective makes you more confident that you understand them, it doesn't actually make you more accurate.
Oh, so we feel like we get them, but we might just be projecting our own stuff onto them.
Pretty much. The study suggested the best way to actually understand someone isn't to guess, but to use direct inquiry. Just ask them. Ask curious, respectful questions.
So the modern update is maybe combine Carnegie's empathetic intention, really try to see their side, but verify it by actually asking them, not just assuming.
Exactly. Empathy plus inquiry. That seems like the most effective and respectful approach today.
So how do these ideas translate now into our digital world, diverse workplaces?
Well, the fundamental human needs haven't changed: recognition, feeling important, being respected. The medium changes, not the message. So, a smile in an email. Maybe that's about using a warm tone, positive phrasing, maybe even using an exclamation mark appropriately to convey friendliness instead of curtness.
Right.
And on a bigger scale, in diverse teams, those core Carnegie tenets, respect, showing appreciation, not condemning people, they're actually the bedrock of creating psychological safety. That feeling that it's okay to speak up, take risks, be yourself, that's essential for real inclusion and innovation.
Okay, bringing it home then. The legacy is just immense. We can't wrap up without mentioning the Warren Buffett endorsement.
No, that's maybe the ultimate testimonial. One of the world's most successful investors saying flat out that the Dale Carnegie course he took when he was 20 changed his life.
And he still has this certificate hanging in his office, the only diploma he displays.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the foundational value of these interpersonal skills, regardless of your field.
So the final takeaway isn't really about manipulation, but something more like, what did you call it? Social reciprocity.
Yeah, I think that captures the healthier interpretation of his philosophy. It's not about taking advantage, it's about investing. You genuinely invest in making others feel important, respected, understood, and the natural return on that investment is cooperation, trust, and yes, influence. Influence becomes the result of positive interaction, not the sneaky goal.
So the book stands as this, maybe indispensable, but incomplete guide. Its biggest contribution might be just framing social skills, not as some magical charisma you're born with.
But as a skill, something systematic, something you can actually study, practice, and get better at. It really democratized the idea of social competence.
Which, as you said, puts the power back in our hands.
It does. The potential is there for everyone.
Okay, so here's the final thought we want to leave you with. If success, at least partly, is a skill in human engineering, what's one small, deliberate step you could take today? Something grounded in genuine sincerity, but also aware of those power dynamics we discussed. How could you practice building mutual success in your next conversation, your next email? Just something to think about.